let's talk about those Warriors.
Yeah.
Tough ending for them to
Yeah.
go out like that. They looked fantastic in the aftermath of Jimmy Butler trade. Steph Curry comes up with that hamstring injury early in the series, and that's all she wrote. The question now is what's next for Golden State. I look at the Warriors, Rachel, and I still see a team that can keep its window open here, right? Like, there's age is a factor. Steph's 37, Draymond's 35, Jimmy Butler's going to be 36 at the start of next season. But all three of them still look like they've got plenty of miles left on that odometer. They've got to make some changes. Jonathan Kuminga, I think, is the most notable there. I think they've got to decide whether Kuminga can be brought back and be part of this team, or he's going to be a restricted free agent this summer. Do they organize some kind of sign and trade to get back pieces that make more sense opposite Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond? Where do you stand on the Warriors? Do you see the window still being open for 1 year, 2 years? What gets them into that championship mix next season?
I mean, I will back a Steph Curry team until he's 40 plus. I'm not kidding. I mean, that game, obviously the running and cutting aspect of his game may fade as he gets older, although there haven't been any signs of it at all. And as we talk about with Kevin Durant, I mean, shooting doesn't age in the same way that everything else does. And his window, to me, is wide open. Draymond and Jimmy, obviously, you're seeing the effect of time on both of those guys. But you're right. I think it is, cutting around the edges. You heard Steve Kerr in the postseason sort of postmortem say, this is a team that I think could have gotten there, and he would know. And that it was very clear the Warriors were just trying to get to Game 6 because Steph, it really sounds like, was going to be able to get back for Game 6, and they thought then they could win, to your point about the Wolves not being as tough as they have looked. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that Game 3, when Jimmy Butler had that amazing game, that's the game that if they had won that game, this would be a very different conversation. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame that didn't happen. I think the silver lining of the Steph Curry injury, and obviously just with Jason Tatum injury, it just sucks to even talk about a silver lining because injuries are brutal. The silver lining was Jonathan Kuminga got back in everyone's good graces and kind of showed that the problem wasn't that he couldn't play with Steph or he couldn't play with Jimmy. It's that he can't really play with Steph and Jimmy.
Can I just read the numbers there real quick? His numbers with Jimmy and I'll just say Jimmy and Draymond on the court together. That's the two big ones that he struggled with. Minus 28.2 per 100 possessions. He cannot play with these guys. It's just sometimes there's an oil and water mix, and with Jonathan Kuminga and these guys, it's there. He's still a 15-point per game scorer, and like you said, he showed that in the playoffs.
Well, and that could be an advantage for the Warriors because going into this last series, Kuminga didn't play, and we were all just like, you're not going to get a player back from that mentally. Mm-hmm. He's just going to spend the rest of the postseason on the bench. And then what value does he have? If you've told the rest of the league, this guy can't play in the playoffs, and we were all like, what's going on behind the scenes? Is there something more here? All of that stuff. You've devalued your own asset. And obviously it was for the good of winning. But now that you had an ingredient taken out of that starting lineup, and he showed he can still play basketball, I think that will actually hype up the trade market for him and show that fit is an issue with Jonathan Kuminga, maybe as much as talent. He's obviously not going to turn into a completely different player, but there are teams he could thrive more on, and this series post-Steph Curry getting injured showed that. And so I think that will help the Warriors in their refiguring around what to do, because I now think they can sign and trade Kuminga in a little bit for a little bit more profit than they could have.
Yeah,
Going into this last series.
Kuminga was part of that ill-fated attempt to have the
2 timelines, baby.
2 timelines, right? You got James Wiseman. Oh, God, where would that team be if they didn't draft James Wiseman? What if they drafted LaMelo Ball, even just to trade him? James Wiseman, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga. They were part of the 2-track plan, 2-timeline plan. Didn't work out. And Kuminga has been a victim of that, right? If Kuminga had been on a bottom feeder team, his numbers would have been significantly better. You watch this guy play when he's kind of let loose and given 30-plus minutes a game. There's a game there. And I think his game will progressively expand beyond the three-point line a lot more than it is right now. I think he's a big-time player, or potentially a big-time player. So the hope for Golden State has to be that there's some team out there that doesn't land. I think Brooklyn's a great example. The Nets need some star power. The Nets, They want Giannis, but I don't think they have the assets to go and get him. But maybe if they fail in that endeavor, they could turn around and go like, well, Kuminga is young. He kind of fits what our group is trying to do. Let's go out there and do a sign and trade and go get him. And maybe from the Nets, I mean, I don't know, Nick Claxton, something along those lines, you can get back that makes more sense with your team because they need an interior defender.
Yes.
And they need another usable body out there on the wing so that you're not playing Draymond 35 plus, Jimmy 35 plus.
Right.
You need somebody like that. I think they can get it. I think Kuminga is a good enough asset that they can get that. Yeah, I'm bullish on Golden State's chances to be a top 4 team in the West next year. I believe that. I mean, they finished the season with the kind of record that
I'm not arguing
was
with
good
you.
enough. If they can find a way to get an asset for Kuminga, they're right up there with the top 4 in the Western Conference next season.
And look, I know that whole crew over there, they want to win another title. No one's ever satisfied. Also, if the end of Steph Curry's run, if the end of Steph and Draymond's run in Golden State is just having a legit top 4 in the West competitive team that gets to the second round and barely misses the conference finals or gets to the conference finals, that's still a win, man. Like, it's so much better than the sort of languishing future we saw for Steph before this trade happened. And, you know, they're a fun team, and I hope they get rewarded by playing good, smart basketball, but even just better for them than what it could have been, I think is really promising to see, and they have the assets and they have the wherewithal as a front office to continue to do that.
Yeah, and a long off season for Steph, I think, will benefit him. I mean, not going into a USA basketball camp, an Olympic situation, give him a long rest. I think they're going to be pretty good next year. Like, obviously, Jimmy works. Might be like kind of their last dance. Like, I don't know about year 2 of all this, or year 3 rather, I guess, of all this, but at least one more year.
Steve Kerr said it. Steph basically said it. We have talked about it over the last few weeks. I wouldn't have been so shocked to see them in the finals from the West.
No.
Like, I'm not saying it was the most likely outcome, but it wouldn't have been shocking.
No, you got.
And then, now that we know what's happening in the East, they possibly could have won another run.
I agree. I think that
right?
the Celtics would have been at full strength, would have been a very bad matchup for them.
course.
But, you know, could they beat the Knicks? Could they beat the Pacers? Sure. They 100% could do that. I agree with that 100%.